welcome. I'm really excited to have Nora Bradford deliver today's workshop titled Kickstarting a SciComm Career. And this workshop is hosted by the Science Communication Committee at the National Science Policy Network, also known as NSPN. And if you are not familiar with NSPN, NSPN is an organization designed for early career STEM professionals who wish to engage in science communication, policy, diplomacy, and more. So I really welcome you to connect with me if you wish to learn more about NSPN or today's event. And I also encourage you to join us in our latest pilot program launched at the start of this calendar year called the Writer's Room. You should join because Nora is not only our invited speaker today, but she is also our editor in the program. And if you like what she offers today, she would be more than happy to book one-on-one appointments with you on your latest science writing projects that you submit to the Writer's Room. But the caveat is that she has limited spots. So definitely don't wait on this opportunity and go straight to that URL to log in as a member, submit your work, and book an appointment. But before handing things off to Nora, I just want to give a big thank you to the team leading the SciComm committee and the Writers' Room this past year. They've been fantastic to work with, and they are passionate about what they do, which is why today Vishalini Rajaram is our moderator. She is a PhD student in human toxicology at the University of Iowa and is an incredible science communicator. She researches oral microbiomes to advance best health practices and also leads the NSPN chapter connecting science to society. And this has a mission to make science accessible and encouraging through initiatives like Research at U Iowa, a comic series. And when it's not comics, Vishalini has written poetry and screenplays with titles like The Little Things That Run the World and Toxic Relationships. And so I'll let her take it from here and introduce Nora.
Thank you, Anastasia. It was a great introduction. And yes, thank you everybody for joining in here. And we're thrilled to have Nora here. Nora is a fantastic person that I have interacted with NSPN. So her viewpoint to how she approaches science communication is commendable. So Nora is a distinguished fourth-year PhD student in cognitive science at University of California, Irvine. And she has published in Scientific American, Science, Quantum Magazine, and we could list out a lot of good things here. She's made a lot of significant contributions to science communication, and she was even an associate writer for PBS Terra show Hungry Planet. She has shown a dedication to make science accessible and engaging to the public. And she's also enhanced and passionate to use those methods to improve teaching science communication. And yes, we are looking forward to a lot of perspectives on how to kickstart a SciComm career. Thank you for being here, Nora. Off to you.
Yay! Thanks for having me. That was so official. Okay, let's see if I can share my screen. Right. So yeah, let's get into it. Thank you for having me, by the way. This is so fun. I love talking about SciComm. So I guess the first thing to say is just that science communication can mean so many different things, and probably a lot of you are coming in with different ideas of what that might mean. You might think I mean museum exhibits, which always have cool writing and explanations in them. You might think I mean textbooks, Scientific American, books, podcasts, news for national outlets and local outlets, lots of things, right? And it also has no singular path. So SciComm is kind of this nebulous and confusing thing. And I'd love if you guys can share maybe in the chat kind of what your favorite types of SciComm to write and also to consume are, just so I get an idea of where we're at, if people really like, YouTube, or I don't know, if you really like textbooks, say that. And that'll kind of help me guide you guys. And also, I guess I would just say, yeah, podcasts, cool. I also love podcasts. Yeah, throughout this talk, I really want this to be interactive and casual. So feel free to just interrupt me, put things in the chat, turn on your mic, whatever. I want this to be as helpful as possible. So yeah, cool. Also, if you guys have podcast recommendations, feel free to put them in because I'm kind of in a rut. All right, so yeah, so many different types of SciComm and many different ways to get into it, right? So I'll just talk a little bit about my journey. I will say I think it was maybe a weird one, but every single one is weird. So you don't have to do exactly what I did, but it's just kind of a example. So I guess the first time I really like heard the term science communication or science writing was when I started writing for a science podcast through my school. This was also right at the beginning of my PhD career. And also it was 2020, so COVID, and I was confused and lost as many people were. So I was like, might as well try this thing. And I was writing like 1-minute episodes for a science podcast called Lowdown on Science. It's kind of fun if you want to listen to it. I liked it. I really loved it, actually. But I got a little frustrated with just writing in the same format and writing such short things, and not really being able to like dive further into the research. So I then wrote a couple freelance pieces for a local news agency, I guess. They have a few different, I guess, publications that they share. So did that. I didn't feel like I was getting a ton of mentorship through that, but it was a good experience too. With that experience, I landed an internship with the Broad Institute. I actually had applied to that multiple times. And finally they took me because they felt like they had seen some growth. I think the freelancing helped. So I did that internship in the winter. I was writing some press releases about biomedical science, which is not my specialty, but not like totally unfamiliar to me. And let's see, and then I was also writing some, Q&As with researchers, some sort of newsy pieces about different initiatives that were happening, stuff like that. So that was great. I had a really good mentorship through that. I then did another internship that was actually in person partly at the Marine Biolab in Woods Hole, Massachusetts. And that's where the picture's from. I love octopuses, so I was thrilled to do that. And yeah, again, just writing like, newsy pieces, press releases, things like that. And yeah, with that one, I had a lot of freedom to write what I wanted. There are a lot of summer researchers that come from all over to Woods Hole for the summer. So I got to write about like tons of different cool things that, people were only there for 3 months. So they were also really excited, which was cool. And then I said, okay, I want to try out journalism, but I don't really know how to do that. And so I kind of like stumbled for a little bit. That was in the fall of 2022. And kind of just started freelancing really timidly, I would say. Like I sent a couple pitches to a couple places. They were not good. They got ignored. And finally, I just connected with an editor at what was Spectrum and is now called The Transmitter. Got a couple pieces through them. I applied to an internship with Scientific American. I didn't get it. And the person who interviewed me like reached out to me and basically said, you should pitch us anyway, because we like you. And I pitched and I got a few things accepted there. And from there, it hasn't been smooth sailing, but it has been like consistent-ish sailing. And we can talk more about that for sure. And then I've also, I wrote for the PBS show. So yeah, that has been fun and interesting, I think. Oh, and yeah, now I just, so the PBS show was last summer through December-ish. And so yeah, I've just kind of continued freelancing, and I've started to teach science writing a little bit with workshops and the writer's room, which has been really fun. So yeah, that's my journey. Does anyone have like questions about any of those little pieces where you're like, I don't really understand what this is, or like, why did you do this? Or if you do, just feel free to stop me. I'll keep going, but.
Okay, maybe I will begin with the question.
Yeah.
So how did you handle the rejections when you have been applying to a lot of places? So were there any follow-up emails, or like how did you break the ice there?
Like when I for the pitches or for internships or both?
Internship, or like how did you reach back to Scientific American?
Yeah, how did that happen? I think well, I'll just say, I don't know if I did this with her, but sometimes I do just reach out to people who've rejected me, and I'm just like, thanks for letting me know, like, if you have feedback about how I could improve or what I could do to, like, be, I guess, more qualified next time, let me know, or what kind of experience you're looking for. I think that does tend to help. And it's not like accusative, like, why didn't you take me? But it's like, what can I do to be better for you, basically? So yeah, I think that has definitely helped. And honestly, people are usually way nicer than you think they're gonna be. Like, I got rejected from a fellowship I really wanted recently. And the person was just like, yeah, we took someone who had like just a different research experience. It wasn't better or worse, it was just like more related to what we're doing right now, but we loved you. Like, it's usually nice. Especially if you like got to the interview stage, they're gonna be nice. So, but yeah, rejection is hard. And sometimes I just have to stop applying to things because it is just really hard to get rejected. So, take care of yourself. And if you have strategies for like building up your confidence in other ways, do that. Like sometimes I'm just feeling so down about SciComm, I just like focus more on my research, or something else. So yeah, that rejection is always hard. And that's also just like part of SciComm a lot, especially if you're freelancing. So yeah, good question though. I feel like it is, rejection can be like a nice growth point because you're like, okay, that's what they were looking for, or like that's why they didn't take me. Yeah. Let's see. How did you begin to freelance for the local paper? That was actually just kind of random. The podcast that I was writing for, I guess the editor from the paper like knew the person who ran the podcast. So they were like, hey, we're doing a series of stories about like the earth or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, basically they were just like, do you have some people who would want to write this? But also I think, and we can talk about this more later too. I often just reach out to editors and just introduce myself and I say, hi, I have this background. I like to write about this. And here are some clips. If you ever need someone for an assignment, let me know. And that's what I did with Spectrum. And that's why they kind of like took me up on that. So I think I could have probably done that for the local paper too. And maybe they would have, either given me a story or just encouraged me to pitch. And then I know the person and it's a little bit easier to pitch. So yeah, that's how that came about. Also, I think a lot of this is just like, once you get one connection, then you get like, it just starts the ball rolling. So probably things like this will also happen to you. It just, yeah, it'll happen down the line, I guess. Yeah. Okay. What makes a successful pitch could be a whole workshop. But I'll talk about that in a couple slides. Good question. Okay. So yeah. So I was thinking we could talk about, yeah, freelancing, which is a lot of pitching. We can talk about internships, and then we can talk about kind of like self-teaching, because probably none of us are going to go to journalism school. I'm not. I don't know about any of you. And you don't have to. And I'll talk about that more. But so a lot of it is just going to be kind of building up skills yourself. Yeah. And yeah, just keep in mind, like, SciComm is a choose your own adventure kind of career. You can choose your own path. You can switch paths. It's very fun. Okay. So freelancing. Probably a lot of you already know this, but start small. You really just need clips in order to start pitching to like larger outlets. So again, this is kind of just like snowballing, I guess. So whatever you can do to get those first clips, I feel like that's like the hardest thing. So if you have a school newspaper, you can write for them. I even wrote for my admissions office in college, and I didn't think it was science writing, but I did write about science. So, that sort of thing. You can start your own blog. There's no one's judging you for doing that. That's fun. You can also write for Sci-Fi Bites. I heard that they're looking for writers. And any of the other bites. I put think I put the link down here. Yeah. So yeah, there's so many different things. Probably those first few you might not get paid for, and that's just kind of stinky, but it's part of the journey, I guess. I definitely didn't get paid for a couple of mine, and it's okay. And also if you've written things for class, like if you think that they could work as like a general audience kind of thing, you can use those as clips too. Any questions about like starting small? I guess that also could have probably been its own slide, but is there anyone who feels like they just don't even have any options? Let's see. How do you start pitching for freelancing without portfolio? Yeah, so that's, I guess I was thinking like with starting small, hopefully the pitching process won't really be pitching. Hopefully like your admissions office will, or you know, whatever thing you're writing for, will kind of have some ideas. Or maybe they have like a topic they want to work on, or a topic that they want to be written about, but they don't have like a story yet. And so it's this like, it's a little bit chiller than pitching, if that makes sense. Because they're kind of working with the editor to like come up with a story idea. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like, I've actually never written for a school newspaper, but I heard that a lot of other science writers started that way. So I don't know what the process is like there, but yeah, they might have some ideas, so it's not as like intense pitching, if you know what I mean. Yeah, and then SciPol Bites, I mean, Anastasia, I actually have never written for them either, so do you have like thoughts about how that pitching process goes?
Yes, that's great. Because Cypel Bites is an opinion forum. And this year, this term, we've kind of made it, I've heard people say, more cosmopolitan in a sense. So we really think more about culture and society this year. But what's great about NSPN, at least as far as it's been up until this day, is that if you also have more long form pieces, we're happy to push that up to the site. So like there was a data diplomacy series that a team of us had coordinated, and after hosting these webinars, I wrote kind of like a op-ed-esque like reflection on what was happening across what all these speakers were saying. And so we can even push that as like a single web page onto the site. So if you want to get like that blogging experience but behind an organization, this is kind of like a great way to do so too.
That's cool. Yeah, that's super helpful. And yeah, I guess the other thing, I mean, I'll talk about pitching in the next slide too. But I guess when you're pitching like smaller outlets where you're not getting paid, they won't expect you to like have a portfolio or to have even clips necessarily. So you can just reach out to the editor and be like, you can even ask, you know, what do you expect a freelancer to have before they write for you? Or yeah, don't be hesitant, I guess, about just reaching out to the editors. They might not respond, but it's not your fault. Cool. Okay, so then also have a whole slide, I think, or two about networking, but that's a huge part of it. Because there are some degree programs in science writing, but because so few people who actually go into science writing do them, a lot of the networking just happens outside of that. So, you know, you might go to conferences, you might go to CommSciCon, which I think I also put a link down here for. Yeah. CommSciCon is great. There's the main one, I think that happens in Boston every year. But there are a bunch of others, like regional ones. I ran the one at the Science Writers Conference one year. And they're great because you apply, you can go and just get like some experience communicating your science, and then you I think at every single one of them you get a clip afterwards. So you're writing about, at the one that I used to run, you would write about like a session at the workshop or at the conference. So that's really nice because then you can take that with you and like share it other places. It's on like a legit website. So yeah. Oh, perfect. Thank you. And yeah, I'll share these slides afterwards too, so you can actually like click on the links. Cool. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about CommSciCon. But yeah, those networks are really helpful because I still like keep in touch with some of the people that I did CompSciCon with. I am like connected on LinkedIn with some of the people who spoke at that. So just little things like that go a long way. Okay. And yeah, just try out different things. Don't be afraid to like switch it up, change topics, write about something you maybe aren't an expert in, write in a different format. Yeah, just play around and see what you like. Okay. Yeah, so again, because there are no like degree programs, or because probably none of us are going to do those, we need to like make our own mentorship opportunities for ourselves and seek those out for ourselves. So one of the really good ones is this David Perlman mentorship program, and there are different versions of it. I think sometimes they have them like at the Science Writers Conference. But this is great. You get matched with a science writer who's volunteering to mentor you, and you write a piece basically under their supervision. So that is really nice and helpful. And then one that I've heard about, but I actually don't know much about, is this one from the Open Notebook. And I don't think I've mentioned the Open Notebook yet. It's a great resource. Like, just keep it like bookmarked on your computer because it's so helpful. And I'll mention them again a lot more. But yeah, this one seems great too. I haven't done it, but yeah. And then beyond like formal mentorship programs, I think also just networking can involve mentorship too. So you can always ask for, informational interviews from people, which I'm sure some of you have done for policy and stuff and other things as well. But if it's someone that you like briefly met at a conference, or someone who did the same program as you or something and went into SciComm, like you can just email them. There's no rule saying you can't. And usually people are really nice, especially science writers. They're very sweet. So yeah, just introduce yourself, explain why you want to talk. And people generally like love talking about themselves. So it's a plus for both of you. It's a win-win. And I think one theme that you'll see throughout this is like staying organized is really important. Just because like you're juggling so many different ideas and things and people. So I used to have this networking document, and I should probably revive it because I haven't been using it lately. But yeah, so I used to keep track of who I talked to and when, what their position was, and what like some takeaways were. And it's helpful to just go back, especially when you're like doing informational interviews with so many people, to just be like, okay, this person said that, I should follow up with this person. It's just helpful. So yeah, just an idea. Any questions about like mentorship programs or networking? One more slide. Yeah. Also like don't be afraid to use your network. I think I said that. And join a local science writers chapter. These are like, I'm in a what's it called, a book club with some people from the SoCal science writing group, and it's just so cute and sweet, and they have events, and it's just a nice way to like connect with people informally, especially if you're like me, where you're not seeing other science writers on a regular basis. It's really nice to just like hang out with them. So yeah, let's see. How do you manage time between, time management is hard. Again, with the stay organized thing. So I use like Google Calendar religiously, basically. I basically just have to mark out kind of what time I'm spending on what ahead of time, or else honestly, I just get lost doing science writing and I ignore my research because that's way more fun. I think that's the biggest thing. I'm also very lucky because my research is like pretty much all virtual, and my advisor is very supportive of science writing. So I'm probably in the minority. But yeah, sometimes I will just like, put science writing off till the weekends or save it for the evenings. But yeah, just staying organized. And I guess also with science writing, like you're going to have deadlines because you're maybe freelancing for different places and they want things done by a specific time. Whereas usually in academia, you have fewer deadlines and you're just doing a lot of stuff like in longer terms. So it's happened to me where I've gotten very caught up in like the short-term deadlines and just like ignored my research for too long. So that just comes into like time chunking ahead of time, and carving out that space for making progress on your research, even though the getting the science writing deadline thing done is like way more rewarding immediately. Yeah, it is hard. Also, I'm sure it would be just so much harder if your advisor wasn't cool with it. So I'm sorry if that is the case. And I think a lot of other people can relate to that too. Yeah. Also, I think if you can if your advisor is like more understanding of you having a more formal commitment, like if you, I don't know, if you have like a part-time job at the writing center, or if you do a summer internship, like if they're more understanding of you doing that than working throughout the year, then do that. And then they can't bug you over the summer or whatever. So yeah, just an idea. But yeah, it is hard. And also there are just times of the year where you just have to focus on one or the other, and that's okay too. But yeah, pitching. I think I could honestly do a whole workshop on this, so maybe I will at some point. Pitching is really difficult. Like I said, that first fall when I was trying to pitch, I threw out some pretty bad ones. I went back and looked at them and I was like, wow, I can't believe I sent that. So yeah, I guess where to start. One is if you can find a like structured support system for doing pitching, that's helpful. So BU SciCommers, I've linked it below too. They're great. And they have a whole system where you like pitch to them and then you write a story with them, and then they basically pitch the story to an outlet. It's kind of strange, but they like have these agreements with outlets that they're okay with it. So that's really nice, and they can kind of help you with that whole process. Also, if you want to like, send a pitch to someone who's pitched before, like before you send it, I've done that a few times. And that's nice. They can just kind of give you some feedback, like, don't say this weird sentence about yourself or whatever that you were to send. But yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah. If you can use connections that you already have, like, if you can reach out and say like, to reach out to the editor basically and say, my friend has written for you. They suggested that I email you with this pitch. Just make a little bit of connection before you send the pitch, or write, in the email above your pitch. That can be nice, because then I don't know why it helps. I guess it just makes them feel more like engaged, or more, I don't know, more like they have to send a response maybe, which is a good thing for you. Yeah, yeah, we should just probably go through like an anatomy of a pitch at some point, but the basic idea is like introduce yourself, include a couple clips that you've written, and then in the actual pitch, it's usually pretty short. It's like maybe a paragraph, maybe two, usually just one. Say why the story is important, a little bit of the context, and then at the end, kind of explain why you should be the one writing it. If you have experience in that topic, or if you've written about it before, or if you are going to be in the area that thing is happening, just give a little like nudge about why you should be the one writing it. Yeah, and then I guess that's basically it. But I can give a lot more detail about pitching if you want. And I also included this document, Outlets to Pitch, is a godsend. It's huge, and it basically just has like all these different examples of outlets and a lot of emails for editors that are hard to find on the internet. So that's great, just to get ideas of like where to pitch. And then also the pitch database is through the Open Notebook. And that basically just, I've submitted some pitches there. but it's basically just people sharing pitches that have worked for them in the past for various outlets. So if you want to pitch a specific outlet, you can look at ones that have worked in the past. Or like if you want to pitch about a specific topic, you can try to find similar ones. So yeah. And yeah, don't get discouraged. It is hard. I would say still, I mean, there are times when I'm on a roll and like everything I pitch is working great, but I would say on average, it's like less than half of the things I pitch work out. So, don't get down. Yeah. And then also like, if it doesn't work for one outlet, just try a different one, because the first couple that I sent that were horrible, like years ago, I didn't even get responses about, but I worked on it, and it was a story that I really wanted to write. And so I, workshop it with a couple people. I probably pitched it to like 6 places, and I finally got it accepted somewhere after I had like massaged it a little bit. So don't give up if it's a story you really want to write. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's all I had to say about pitching. So any questions about pitching? It's hard. But yeah, I'm always happy to like talk more about it too if people have questions. Anything to avoid in a pitch? It's a good question. Hmm. That's hard, because I'm like, here are all the things I'm like going through the things you should have, but it's hard to think of what you should avoid. I guess if you're not sure about something, like if you're kind of making an assumption about what the outcome could be, or how this research could be used or something, and you haven't talked to the researcher yet, hold off on that. Just include what you know for sure. Because sometimes I've oversold things, and then I've gone to report the story and realized like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, and now my editor expects that. So maybe that. Yeah.
That's
Good
interesting
question.
that you say that. It sounds like
Mhm.
you're almost you're at the very front line of research. You're almost trying to catch it in advance before it actually happens, and that's kind of the value you bring to journalists and editors. Is that kind of what
Mhm.
you're saying?
Yeah, like if yeah, I should have included this too. Eureka alert, I'll just type it in here. That is a really helpful website, and it just has all these embargoed press releases from institutions for studies that haven't come out yet but are coming out in the next like week. And you can also sign up for some other like just I don't know what they're even called, but like email lists from like, I have one from Cell, one from Nature, where they basically send out yeah, basically just like alerting the press to things that are about to come out. So in that way, for sure, you're like staying at the front line of even things that haven't been published yet. But I actually can't use Eureka Alert because I'm a student. So you can use it for like, they have press releases on there that have just recently come out, so it is kind of helpful, but you can't get the behind the scenes stuff until you're not involved in research yourself anymore, which I guess makes sense, but it's frustrating. But anyway, yeah, so moral of the story is, yeah, you're basically trying to find the things that either are about to come out or just came out, and you don't know if they're like legit yet. The one that I was thinking of that I realized I kind of oversold it, was one that a researcher had actually sent to me, because he was like, I saw that you wrote about a similar thing, and we have this paper that's coming out in like a week. Would you want to write about it? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. And because it was like from his perspective, I was pumped. And I probably should have been more skeptical. So I like ended up, pitching it. And then immediately after, I like emailed some people who I thought, who were like outside commenters, basically, like they're working in a similar field, but they weren't working on the project. And I was like, hi, what do you think of this? Like, please don't share with anyone, obviously, because it's embargoed. And they were kind of like, yeah, it's not that exciting. And it's kind of like framed in a weird way. And I was like, oh, okay. And then the editor wrote back to me after that and was like, so you want to write this? And I was like, never mind, actually. Yeah. So
But fantastic that you're saying that you are growing this reputation where it's more about people trusting you with their almost their valuable data, their valuable information as a reporter. And so
Mhm.
that's a great place to be. So
It's exciting. It feels nice. It's pretty rare still. It's only happened to me like maybe 5 or 6 times that like researchers reach out. But yeah, once you start writing, like people just flood your inbox. Like a lot of I guess like a lot of newsrooms for like institutions will email me press releases before they come out about embargoed papers, you know, because they want their research highlighted. So you'll get a lot of those once you start writing.
do you
That's
ever
the
get
most.
also even maybe like anonymous sources? Is there ever any like a sense of secrecy in that?
I wish. I would love that. I love the drama.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, sadly, not yet.
Okay. Great,
Yeah.
great.
So
Yeah.
how long did it take for you to like build that credibility?
I guess hmm,
Or how many
maybe
pieces?
like maybe like 5 or 6 pieces in like national outlets. After that, I think people started like reaching out to me a little bit more. Yeah, and I guess also like I kind of put myself in a little bit of a niche with like writing about octopuses a lot. So there were some octopus researchers that would reach out to me, or like random people would send me like octopus stuff. You know, that like they had been sent, but they didn't want to write about. So they sent it, like other science writers would send it to me, forward me emails from other researchers. Um, so yeah, I guess it depends on just like how much of a niche you're in and how much of a cult following that has. That makes sense, yeah. But yeah, I guess the other thing to mention is like you'll pitch a lot, but once you write a few pieces, especially if it's for the same place, they might kind of pitch to you. Like they might reach out to you and be like, we have a story. Like this has happened to me a lot recently with like science news. They'll be like, we have a paper that we really want to write about. It's coming out on Monday, which is like 4 days away. Would you mind writing it? And that's nice because it's like it's a quick piece. And then you don't have to worry about pitching, which takes a lot of time. So yeah, that makes things easier. Cool. I guess we're gonna move on to internships. So any other questions about freelancing in general or pitching? Okay, you can also ask them whenever. I don't really know why I'm asking now, but cool. All right, so internships. Lots to consider in an internship because it is a commitment. So first of all, like what type of writing you're going to be doing. You can do journalism, institutional. If you're into social media, you can do that. Even like I've seen a lot of people really interested in like TikTok lately. So if you want to like do that, there are probably like specific ones for that. And you want to think about kind of how that will expand your portfolio and how does it line up with your goals. So I knew pretty early on that I wanted to do journalism, but it is somewhat easy. It's a lot easier to get an institutional internship. So I decided to do like 2 of those, which there's like mixed feelings about that. I've definitely gotten some journalists who like look down on institutional communications, but a lot of them have also done it also in the past. Like there's a lot of moving back and forth between it, between the two. So I think in my perspective, it was helpful, because, you know, a press release at an institution is very similar to a news story in journalism. You're just not doing the extra work of like talking to an outside researcher and maybe critiquing the science, but everything else is the same. The way you explain the science, a lot of that, same. So yeah, I guess that's all I had to say about that, but don't feel it. Basically, moral of the story, in my opinion, don't feel like you have to do the exact same type of writing that you eventually want to do. If you think it's a cool topic, or you think the mentor is going to be really good, or it's in a location that you like, all of those might be reasons that you go for something that isn't like the ideal type of writing. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, also topics. So you can think about kind of like whether a topic is in your comfort zone or not, which I think both of the ones I did were like equally kind of at the edge of my comfort zone. I have a background in like neuroscience, so doing biomedical stuff was like there was some stuff I had never heard of, but there was a lot that I understood. And same with marine bio. And then also do like enjoy learning about these things. Like I went for the marine bio one. It didn't pay that well, and I did have to be in person, which wasn't ideal, but I love octopuses so much. And it was like a really special experience because I got to see octopuses a lot. So you know, that made up for it. So you just gotta kind of balance that out. Let's see. And then yeah, thinking about, you know, the location, remote, full-time, part-time. I will say doing a part-time internship during the school year as a grad student was pretty bad. I mean, it turned out to be a great experience, but it was like really difficult. And I was doing East Coast time while being on the West Coast, so I had to wake up at like 6 a.m. So you know, don't put yourself through that if you think it's gonna be rough. Yeah, let's see. So over the writing journey, what did you narrow down? That's funny. I feel like even when I was writing for the podcast, you could choose whatever you wanted to write about for the little episodes that we did. So I chose a lot of stuff about octopuses and about the brain, and stuff like that. So I feel like even from the get-go, I was kind of like moving into this niche a little bit. But even now I try to like push myself to take on other stories, and often I'll pitch them and then they don't get accepted because probably the editor can tell I don't know what I'm talking about. But I guess also like, you know, places will like Science News will reach out to me if they have any type of story about the brain or about like neurons. So, you know, that's also contributes to the niche, even if I'm not the one pitching it. But yeah, do you have general advice on what experience what experience they'll look for? I guess, that's a good question. I'm trying to think of like what my mentor was like, oh, you finally have enough experience to do this. I guess writing like pieces that are kind of in the same like length range was probably helpful because I had written tons and tons of short, tiny podcasts. I don't think that was as helpful as having written a couple long pieces. So I think that's probably the first like big thing. And yeah, if you've written, like a lot of institutions look for people who can write press releases, which are just about one paper that has like just come out. So if you can write something like that ahead of time, I think that's great. They'll probably accept you if you haven't. But yeah, that's probably, those two things are probably like things to look for, I guess. Yeah. And if you've written about the type of science that they do, I think that's really helpful. And especially if you guys are grad students in something, like look for institutions that do that topic, because they'll really value that expertise, maybe even more so than people in journalism. So yeah, good question. Did I also have another? Yeah. So I have this slide just to overwhelm you with lots of options for internships. And yeah, I guess I also put some links in here. So there's a couple things from the Open Notebook about, you know, finding an internship and also like getting the most out of an internship. And then NASW has a few of these like virtual internship fairs. I guess they're usually in like March for summer internships. But you know, just keep an eye on them because they're very helpful. And you basically just, it's like you just get, I guess you just make appointments, but they're like 5-minute appointments with the person who runs the internship. So you just get to like chat with them really quickly and they get to see your face and you like make this connection, which is really nice. Yeah. Let's see. Are there any of these I want to highlight? I would say AGU, I think theirs is remote. And it seems really nice and like low-key and maybe a good place to start. And then some of these are much harder to get, like Scientific American, like I don't even think I'm qualified for that yet. And Science News, those are just, they're really competitive. So if you're looking for something that like might be slightly easier, smaller things like the Truth Initiative. They do a lot of stuff with like smoking habits and addiction. And the lady who runs it is super cool. So that's an option. Yeah. I don't know a ton about other ones, but yeah. And you can always also, this is just reminding me, like, if you're part of an association, like a scientific association, or if there's things in your field, you can reach out to them and be like, do you need people to write for your website? Or like, do you need people to like write press releases for you guys? And they might have some opportunities for you that where they would like super, super value your expertise. So yeah. Oh yeah, part-time things at AGU. And yeah, the person who runs those seems really nice too. So yeah. Okay, any questions about internships? It's just a wide range. And there are a lot of people, it's tough because like for science and Science News and Scientific American and Stat even, you're competing against people who did do like master's programs in science writing. Because they also usually go to those for the summer after their program. So it's tough, and just don't get down if you don't get it. Because they have a lot of experience and a lot of like networking on their side. So well,
That's an interesting thing. So, what is generally the timeline that you take for getting an internship, or like the application process to the interviews to the selection?
yeah. Let's see. I guess for the summer, when do they usually come out? I mean, again, it's like so varied, but I guess I start seeing people post about them maybe in like January. And then the big push is usually around March. And then yeah, I mean, I guess you usually find out by like April or May. Sometimes it's later. But yeah, and then I guess I also didn't even mention this, but AAAS has their program in science writing that they have rejected me from 3 times. So that's pretty great. But it does seem like a very helpful program. So I probably should have listed them too. I'm just a little butthurt. But yeah. And I think they do, their deadline is for applications is usually like January 1st or something. And then I think they have it all closed out by like April, early April. Yeah. But yeah, and then I guess timeline in experience wise, like when you should start looking for internships, it really just depends on like, I guess on what your timeline is. Like as grad students, this is hard to fit into our lives. And hard to like move to a place and yeah. So just whenever it works for you, but also which type of internship you're doing. Like, I think for me, it seemed a lot easier to get an institutional internship. And so I just went for it pretty early on. But if you want to wait and try to do, more of a journalism internship, you might need a bit more experience before they accept you. So, yeah, but there's no harm in applying multiple times either. I think them seeing you grow over that time course and like seeing your continued interest is a good thing. So might as well like apply even if you think you're not qualified yet. Yeah.
Just to follow up, I'm just curious. So, are there any like visa restrictions or sponsorship restrictions for these internships? Like,
So many.
Okay.
I don't know the details, but I know a lot of them are just horrible about taking international students. And I don't know, my partner is international, so I should know this, but like OPT versus CPT, I think you could use some of that time for this. But I know that that's like precious, so maybe you wouldn't want to. Yeah, I don't know all the details, but I know that it is hard, unfortunately. Yeah. I feel like that's just in general for internships, even outside of science writing. Like, I don't know if you've tried to apply for internships as an international student, but it seems difficult. People just don't want to sponsor visas for like 3 months, I guess. But yeah. Oh, there's a question in the chat. Okay. I'm on track to graduate with my PhD around next spring. Me too. And am trying to gain experience before then. starting from basically zero, no worries. Do you have recommendations for quick experience? I'm planning to send some op-eds. Oh, cool. Yeah, I think university newspaper is great. Yeah, I would also check out the, let's see, let me go back. Yes, no, sorry. I have like you guys pulled up on top of this anyway, but yeah, the Science Bites, it's there are tons of different ones for different topics. So there might be one for what you're getting your PhD in. And they seem pretty open to like different ideas. And if you wanted to write for them a lot, I'm sure you probably could. Although I've never written for them, so I'm just kind of, that's how I perceive it anyway. Yeah, I guess how to get a lot of experience fast. I mean, it's nice if you can find like some sort of part-time internship thing, because then you don't have to go through all the trouble of like making new connections and like thinking of things to pitch. If they can just give you assignments to do, that's much faster. Yeah, and I guess maybe even the newspaper has some like something like that where they can just kind of give you assignments. I would say the following the research, finding papers, pitching, that all takes a weirdly large amount of time. So if you can skip all that, that's great. Yeah. But I can also brainstorm a little bit and maybe message you after. Cool. Okay. Yeah, I guess the last part, oh my God, sorry, it's already forward. Okay. Yeah, so just quickly, like self-teaching is a big part of being a science writer. There are lots of different resources out there. I would say just like scour the Open Notebook website in general, but they also have these cool master classes where they like send you topics regularly. So you get to like learn, you know, about a specific thing if you're interested. And yeah, read a lot. I'm dyslexic, so I actually don't even like reading that much, but I listen to a lot of audiobooks. And I just kind of try to, while I'm listening, I try to notice what it is that I liked about the writing and just kind of think about how I might, you know, work that in. I've been really into like reading memoirs lately, and you would think that that's not related, but there are some things about just like the sentence structure or like how they describe, you know, scenes or something that I just try to hold on to and like take with me. So yeah, read a lot and also like just be aware while you're reading. And go to a lot of events. Like I mentioned, there are those regional SciComm groups that are great. There are a lot more than I listed too. So you can go on the NASW website and look for the one near you. They usually have events, and then NASW as a whole has events too. And I think the student rate is like $20 a year or something, and it's completely worth it. So they have events about like freelancing, about, you know, taxes while freelancing, about pitching, all types of things that are super helpful. What else? Oh yeah, BU SciCommers, like I mentioned, is awesome. Great place to start. They have a Slack channel that is really lively and helpful. And they also have mentor chats once a month. They had Ed Young a while ago, and they just have like other kind of like expert science writers come on and talk about their experience. And also this science writing news roundup email. It's like $3 a month, and I think it's especially helpful if you're looking for jobs or for like pitching. They have just a lot of like resources listed there. They have like calls for pitches from places, and things like that. So yeah. And it comes out every week. Cool. And they also have like a list of events. That's why I put it in the events thing. And then yeah, the KSJ fact-checking workshops are very cool and helpful, and fact-checking is a pretty well-paid skill. So if you're interested in that, it's basically just like looking over people's pieces and going through like sentence by sentence and backing up each claim. So it's kind of fun because you get to learn about like a lot of different things without having to write anything. And yeah, they pay like, I think some things pay like $50 an hour for fact checking, which is like kind of nice. Yeah, and you can get like a certificate from doing those workshops, so that's a plus. Okay, I guess my last thing that I just wanted to say is like when you're thinking of a new opportunity, or you're deciding whether you want to take on a new opportunity, I try to think about like three things. Does it pay well? Does it teach me something new? And does it align with my values? And or does it, align with my goals, that sort of thing. And so sometimes like recently I took on like an institutional writing gig that, it doesn't really align with my goals because I don't really want to do institutional writing, but I'm learning something new and cool about a paper and it pays really, really well. So, if two of those things line up, that usually is enough. Try to not compromise to the point where you're just getting one of them. Yeah, I think that's a good rule of thumb. And yeah, I feel like I can't do a workshop like this without saying that SciComm is really challenging these days. A lot of people are getting laid off. So, if it doesn't turn out to be your full-time job, that's fine. Maybe that's better. But you can also find ways to like, work communication skills into plenty of other fields. And so this is not for nothing. And yeah, everyone goes at their own pace and rejection is unavoidable. It doesn't mean you should quit, just part of it. Cool. I think, yeah, that's all. Thank you. There's a question in the chat too. What would be good pay? Good question. So good pay, I don't know what the like average rate is right now, but usually I don't take anything on if it's under about $1 a word, which is kind of a funny way to think about a piece, because it's not like the actual words that are the work, but yeah, usually $1 a word. So the institutional thing I just got is $2 a word, just like very nice. And institutional writing is when you're writing for like a news office in like a school or an institute. So it's people say like critics will say that it's like marketing, which I guess it technically is related for sure. You're trying to make the institute look good, but also it is SciComm and you get really good skills out of it, and it doesn't feel corrupt, I guess, in the way that like marketing makes it sound. You're kind of just getting one side of the story, which is, I guess, troubling if you're writing about something super controversial, but usually it's fine. So yeah, basically the main difference is like you don't talk to outside researchers, you just write about the person you're interviewing who actually did the work, and then they get to look over it usually, which is a big difference between journalism and institutional writing. So yeah, in journalism, the scientist doesn't get to read it before it goes out. Yeah. Hopefully that helps. I probably should have clarified that earlier. Thanks for asking. Any other questions? I'm sorry I went so late. I'm happy to stay on too.
This is awesome. Like, I think whenever I meet with you or attend any of your sessions, I think I'm loaded with information. I'll have to go back, recheck on so many things that I have to work on.
It's a lot. I know. Because I feel like I just want to get it all in there, and also like, yeah, you can just go back and you don't have to like soak it all in.
It's very interesting. That's what I really wanted to stress upon. It is
good.
Great.
I'm glad. Yeah. Because I feel guilty if I forget to mention something. So yeah. Cool. Yeah, and I really mean it. Feel free to keep in touch. I didn't add my LinkedIn, but you can easily find me and just add me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if anybody else have any more questions that you want to be addressed, we have pulled in together a document which I'm sharing at the chat box. So feel free to add it to the document, or you can also find most of the questions that was answered in the session. So thank you so much, Nora.
Yeah, no problems. This is great. Yeah. Yeah. And feel free to email me if you have any questions too. My inbox is open. Cool.
Fantastic. Thank you again. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll
Thanks for having me.
Recording and we'll close out the event. But yes, feel free to reach out. Thank you so much.